All right. Well, if you came in expecting an AI battle of the bands, that was a really, really good way for me to test misinformation to see if it would be effective. Cybersecurity person at heart. So this panel, we're going to really explore some of the interesting aspects of AI platforms as a whole. And so we're going to spend the next 44 minutes or so, try to get us back on track to 11:50, talking a little bit about different AI platforms, the good, the bad, and really trying to help you all understand some of the interesting aspects that my panelists are witnessing and being exposed to as they really dive into AI. So let me go ahead and get started. First, big thank you all for coming. It's Hack Fort Day 2. Really appreciate you all coming on out. I'm Ed Vasko. If you don't happen to know me, I'm most recently was with Boise State University for about 4 years. Ran an institute there, focused on cybersecurity. Been in the cyber industry for about 33 years, and really focused on helping build the community here around cyber and now AI. So I've gathered some phenomenal, I'm not going to overhype them too much, I'll let them do that themselves, some phenomenal panelists. Unfortunately, we had an emergency happen about 10 o'clock or so last night, my read. Our third panelist dropped, she had something come on up. But I'm really pleased to have Kevin and Noah here. So if you want to take a second and introduce yourselves.
Hello, everybody. I'm Kevin Rank. I'm a lecturer at Boise State. I teach IT there. I've been in the IT industry since 1995. I've got 30 years of IT experience, and I love playing with the technology, just total geek type personality. When AI first started coming out, I've been playing around with it a little bit before, like ChatGPT arrived. But I didn't really jump into it until it became really accessible, and all of a sudden, at least in the business world, I teach in the business college. When all of a sudden the business world kind of started really blowing up with it is when I really jumped into it. I teach a class on it at Kobe in the Boise State. I also teach one of their continuing education classes. So I do a lot with AI, and I do my best to keep up, and it's kind of crazy how much is going on in the space. Good to Noah?
Noah? Yeah. Thanks, Kevin.
My name is Noah. I'm the founder of AI Genius Automations. I build AI-powered software and automations for companies. So I'm the industry side of the panel, I suppose. You're in industry now, right?
Yeah, I am now. Yeah.
Okay, so you're the hybrid. We're the purists. Mostly my company is building software and automations that have kind of AI capabilities, kind of specialized in the AI implementation piece. The problem that we're solving is basically that AI seems to be kind of over here. You have to go over here to use it, but all of your company and your information and your processes are over here, and people don't know how to bridge that gap. And so that's kind of the thing that we specialize in. And when I'm not doing that, I try to spend as much time as I can kind of educating the community and small business owners on tips and how to get time back or efficiency back or solve problems with different kinds of AI tools that are coming out. Because like you said, it's happening so fast that, I mean, I have all kinds of feeds and things that I follow. I can't keep up. It's all I do.
No, right.
So for the average person to be able to know, oh, this thing exists that solves this problem, it's really hard. So I try to get it out as much as possible.
Yeah, and the great part here is that both of them do a terrific job of really evangelizing the opportunities of AI out into the Boise ecosystem. So if you haven't had a chance to run into Kevin or Noah, just recognize you're really, these two are rock stars in this space. So I appreciate you both being here. And of course, I travel all the time now because I'm not at Boise State. I'm back in industry. And so I'm running the classic, speaker tickle. So bear with me. One of the things that I always like to set the stage with kind of a premise. If we rewind the clock to October 2022, a long, long, long time ago, and realized that since October 2022, our world has shifted as a result of the launch of open models, OpenAI and ChatGPT, and how it's taken off in this industry and in this space, and how it's had such an impact. It harkens me back to, you can tell I'm a little aged. I got some mileage under my belt. It harkens me back to really the beginnings of the internet and the explosion that we had at the kind of late 1990s. And it's this concept and significant wave. And any of these kinds of waves in technology in my career, I always harken back to a historian who presented some interesting laws of technology. His name is Melvin Kranzberg, and he in the mid 80s presented a series of laws of technology. And I always harken back whenever we have a new wave like this to his first law, and it'll be kind of a premise here that we'll go through and we'll leverage as we have this conversation. And his first law of technology is that technology is neither good nor bad, but more importantly, nor is it neutral. That's the interesting aspect of the law, nor is it neutral. So when we think about AI, and we think about how we use it to improve, let's say, business, automate different business areas, how we use it in our daily lives as students or as workers or as just humans out in human space, we can see it being really propagated and useful from the perspective of good. But one of the things we'll touch on here in this panel is some of the areas that AI is being used in a malicious way. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. Before I do that, though, I really wanted to kind of get a show of hands, if you don't mind, get some audience participation. I'd love to get your perspective and your uses of AI. So who here has used AI as a search engine replacement? Yeah. Okay. A goodly more. Let's call it a by hands majority. How about AI as a content generator? Okay. Good. And I'm going to jump in there a little bit. So text. Hey, and I'll share with you an example. One of my first uses of ChatGPT, I had a presentation to a group here, and I literally went on to ChatGPT and I said, build me a PowerPoint presentation and build me the content for that PowerPoint presentation for a 1-hour talk to this community on this topic. And the eye-opening joyfulness for me was that in like literally 30 seconds, ChatGPT presented it all to me. And I was like, this is perfect. So who used it for that kind of instance? Paper writing, okay. How about images? Just pure line images, great, okay. How about videos? A couple of people, only a few hands come up. How about music or other forms? Okay, awesome. All right, now we're kind of moving through the maturity model. Okay, as you kind of look around the room and think about who's responding, there's a few people that are at this kind of video and kind of this more advanced side of AI generation. How about agentic AI? People that have used agent-based AIs. Go do this work for me and come back with information. Okay, terrific. So that's wonderful. Thank you for that feedback, because I think that's going to help guide us here. Because I would love to get each panelist, and I'm going to start with Noah, and then I'll come to Kevin because I started the other way to begin with. First question really to you both is, you've both been on the early adopter edge. I think that's how we all came together, was really in the sense of like, hey, we're all looking around and trying to figure out who's using AI, and we found each other. And you've been at the early edge of these public AI spaces. So what's been your personal journey kind of through that maturity I just took the audience through? What's been your personal journey? And was it orderly or was it chaotic? And why?
I guess I would say it was mostly chaos in the beginning.
Sure.
I started off, when AI hit the scene, I was a graphic designer. And my first exposure to generative AI was image generation. And as soon as I understood what was happening, because I didn't understand it at first, that it was generating an image, I thought it was compositing images like from other images. But when I understood that it was generating it, it was my first thought that this is going to replace me. I need to understand this technology. If it can do what I can do in seconds, what takes me days or weeks, there's no way. Like, people aren't just not going to pay for. They're not going to pay for it. It's just they won't. So that was kind of like my first exposure was actually with image generation. Mm-hmm. The second one, which is where I had a hard pivot from being just curious to being like, oh, this isn't what I thought it was when I had it write code, functioning code, which was pretty remarkable. I actually had to write it just a JavaScript that I could paste into the console of a web, like a Google or something like that, and then run it inside the developer tools. And I told it to just make like a square or a blue square in the middle of the screen with a red circle that revolves around the blue square, because I wanted to do actions. And one shot, I pasted it in there, ran it, and it was circling on the screen. And I remember just staring at the screen, and I was like, this is going to change everything. And so from there, it was chaos, right? Because you dive into the world and then realize that at first it was just ChatGPT, and everybody was like, okay, cool, we all know what ChatGPT is. And then as the tools just continued to just expand, it seemed like infinitely in every direction, solving all these different problems. Some of them were garbage, some of them were hacks, some of them were scams, some of them were really good, and it's really hard to tell which are which. So in the beginning, it was just like a lot of putting hands on a lot of things, like over and over and over again to try to, go through the journey.
Yeah, yeah,
came
that's
more
great.
Early, like as I started to understand the technology more.
Yeah, you went further and further down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
That's right.
Yeah. Kevin, how about you?
So for me, mine was very chaotic. It arrived. I was already using DALL-E because I actually do photography on the side. It's one of my hobbies. So I was playing with DALL-E 2 at the time, and that's where I actually heard about OpenAI. I'd been using it for several months, and then all of a sudden they had this announcement: hey, check out ChatGPT. Logged in, tried it out. I was like, holy cow, this is amazing. And looking back at what it produced back then to what it is today, it's night and day. There's a huge difference. And I was doing that. I'm using image generators quite a bit, Midjourney, Leonardo. I use Ideogram quite a bit. Ideogram 3.0 just came out, and just trying to keep up with this stuff. In the last week, we had Ideogram 3.0, Gemini 2.5, ChatGPT image generator, and
which is melting GPUs.
Yeah, and then DeepSeek V3. That's, I think, in the last week or even 3 or 4 days. So trying to keep up, to me, it's still very chaotic. Where I'll see something really interesting, like this past weekend, there was a research paper about it from Procter & Gamble talking about research that they did with some groups. Ethan Mollick is a person I follow, and he was part of that group and was talking about it. And literally for my class on Wednesday, I just said, you know what, this is really interesting. I used ChatGPT, or actually I used Claude, and I created a whole 20-slide presentation based on it with all the information from the research and other ideas that I had to put all that together. And I had to, I created this in about 2 hours for class, and I was able to completely prep and get ready. Trying to teach a generative AI class in this environment is very chaotic. Usually as professors, we'll come up with lesson plans and slides, and those will last for several years. I am literally updating my slides every week for this class. It's very intense. So my life is very chaotic because of that.
Oh, I can understand that. Entirely. I mean, so before we get into the next topic, I really want to build upon that chaos, because both of you touched on it. This chaotic journey that you've gone through. And I think one of the things I want the audience to understand is that, you have what I'll call the 500-pound gorillas already being determined by the marketplace. We all know ChatGPT, whatever Bard is now, will be a new name next week because Google will change it. Noah, I'm going to come back to you really quick and double click more on the business side and some of the work that you're doing with your clients. How are they handling that chaos, because a platform that's helping them today, let's say with automation, may be completely different, or there may be a new platform that's, subcomes that. So, when you think about it from an industry perspective, it's almost as if, well, actually from an artist perspective, it's suddenly blue, cyan is not cyan anymore. It's now, periwinkle. And periwinkle isn't periwinkle next week. It's, something else. So that's kind of the impact that suddenly what we were using and we've been used to using in industry, which is, an asset that works over time, now suddenly is shifting on a almost pure chaotic basis. I mean, are you seeing that, and what's the impact?
Yeah, and so if I were to use your analogy about color, with my clients and even with like my company or what I have determined to be durable skills in such a chaotic kind of dynamic era that we're going into. If we were to use the color example, it's not so much, don't focus on the colors, it's color theory. There's like a psychology behind like how colors make you feel. And there is like a synonymous set of durable skills, even in this space where everything is changing so fast. Instead of focusing on necessarily the tools, it's what problems they solve. It's understanding how the technology works. It's understanding how to interact with the AI systems. It's understanding, how do I use these to research faster? If you understand kind of the underlying principles of why one tool works well or not well, then when a new tool comes out, you have a conceptual framework with which to judge it. If you don't understand that, then every tool is a mystery. Right? I can use a tool for 5 minutes and make this is garbage, and I know exactly why, and I can explain it in great detail. But that's because I'm constantly interacting with these things, right? And I have that framework. And so for a lot of people who are feeling kind of, I don't really know where to start, this feels overwhelming, I always just tell people, just if you're in that space, just get a GPT account, get a paid one, spend the $20 and just put hands on it and start to ingest some information about how these systems work. And then when you go out into the world and you start to interact with them, it makes more sense when you view a different system, how it's working, why it's working, what you like and don't like. And so to me, that's understanding kind of the fundamentals of the systems themselves and what problems they solve. Not that this is a shiny new thing, but what problem is it solving? And then I think that's much easier to think of it that way than to try to, this is a new tool. Oh, this is a new tool, but what problem does it solve?
Right. Are you seeing the same sort of thing, Kevin? Especially, from a student perspective. And just so you know, we had a series of questions prepped, and I'm way off script. So the fact that they're like moving with me on this is great. So I appreciate you both doing this. Take us down the student path. I'd really love to double click on that because that chaos, but the constant change. Are you seeing these new skills being developed by students?
I'm seeing them developed by some students, and other students I'm dragging, kicking, and screaming into using the tools. I have, I can think of specific students, one of which is in the room, that are, very technical users of the devices, of the tools. They are keeping up with it. One in particular, who's just probably one of the best users I know of, is using it. He's able to use it to take notes. He's using it to think of what he's going to do when he gets out of college. He's got some of the stuff he shares is quite amazing, stuff that I've not even thought of, doing all sorts of data visualization, stuff like that. So we have some of those, and then we have the students that don't like AI. I teach. As part of my class, I get a lot of artists in it. And there is a definite negative connotation to AI, generative AI, when it comes to art. Last semester was a really good example. I had a class full of them, and it really changed the whole feeling of the class. This semester, at worst, I've got one student that doesn't care too much about the artist side, but he's liking the other side. Totally different feel to the class. So really, it's like any group of people. You're going to have the whole gambit. I've got a lot of students that are beginning to understand it. I've got, in my specific AI class, I've got a lot of students that are seeing the use of it and saying, they're telling me, I am now subscribe to Perplexity. I use Notebook LM on a weekly basis. They're using all these different tools that when the class started, they never used. I've got one of our history professors in my class. First day of class, I was like, hey, look at this. I can write a program, run it on Google Colab. It's a Python script, and you don't have to know anything at all. Just ask the GPT to create your code, paste it in, run it, and it works. It was mind-boggling to her. She's very non-technical. And in my class, we're 11 weeks in, she is writing programs. She's using generative AI for all sorts of things. She used it over break to create a tabletop game. So she's using it all sorts of ways. And it's just incredible how different people are using it and catching up. There's still a ton of people that are very basic level. We had a hackathon at Boise State, brought in a lot of staff and faculty. And the stuff I'm doing is a little more advanced because I've done a lot of the entry level stuff, and I got a lot of comments where a lot of people are saying, oh, this part went completely over my head. Then I had other comments that it was awesome what I was doing. So people are at different levels still. We're still trying to get them caught up. But what I find really interesting, one of the kind of scary sounding skills that you should develop is called prompt engineering. It sounds really scary, but honestly, it's just writing. It's just talking. Mm-hmm. It's talking to an AI. It's a lot like talking to a person, and that skill works on every single tool. You develop it once, and it works everywhere. Gemini, Claude, Grok, Llama, ChatGPT, all these systems all work functionally the same when you're using it that way.
I appreciate that. And thanks again for both of you going off script a little bit, because I'm going to pivot off of some of the elements here that we've just talked about. The chaos that we saw, all of us have seen, the three of us, and I'm sure many others here, you've all seen in that journey through the various LLMs that are out there. That chaos and that opportunity is one that's, I think I would say collectively we've seen a lot of good come from it. A good friend of ours in the community, Brad Frazier, he's over at Holly Troxel. He's typically the naysayer because he's an IP lawyer. So he's going to poo-poo anything that comes out of an LLM because of various reasons. But long and short of it, putting aside that kind of approach, one of the interesting things, come back to Kranzberg's law, technology is neither good nor evil, but it can be used in a non-neutral way. And so if we think about these LLMs and how they're being utilized for good, and we've given some good examples here, put your hat on and think like a bad guy for half a minute, and you start to think about, oh wait, these tools might have evil intents too, okay? So I'm gonna maybe give a couple of examples and tee up the next topic, which is really on the warnings of Gen AI. So two examples here. A Freedom House report that came out in 2023 found that governments across the spectrum of open democracies all the way through autocracies are all leveraging AI to produce multi-channel content. And what do I mean by multi-channel content? I'm saying texts, images, and video with the full-on intent of manipulating audiences, manipulating people who are receiving that content, and even censoring, going so far as to censor through a deluge of content, censoring contrarian approaches and contrarian thoughts. And a good example, there's a platform called Synthesia that allows for the creation of really, really well-formed deepfakes. And if you know what a deepfake is, it's essentially like if this was not Ed, but Ed was out here spewing anti-Semitic kind of approaches and content, this would be the not Ed. So, Ed doesn't do that, but not Ed would. Yeah, exactly. Now we get into this like really interesting philosophical conversation about, well, if the not Ed knows that, but so an example that the Freedom House report identified was that in Venezuela, the Venezuelan government and government-controlled media went so far as to produce AI-generated deepfakes of pro-government content that was set up in an English, in fake English channel oriented news broadcasts that were then propagated on out to the Venezuelan population. And they had a significant impact, not because they were in Spanish, the fact that they were in English and they were faked channels of English broadcasters talking about the Venezuelan government in a positive way. Another example, in more cybercrime and less geopolitically created or related, is the significant rise in AI deepfakes. And I'll give you this perfect example. Most recently, there was a $25 million wire fraud that occurred. London-based organization that had a Hong Kong-based remote facility, a remote office. The Hong Kong employee was on a video call with multiple, not a single, multiple AI-generated personas of London-based personnel, including, and this is where it gets real fun, including the CFO of the organization. And the CFO's avatar, fake avatar, the deep faked avatar, told the Hong Kong employee to wire transfer $25 million. And the person in Hong Kong is seen and interacting with and hearing the command from somebody in their leadership team to go do this work. This is no longer at that kind of phishing email, the kind of Nigerian prince trying to get you to send them $1 million. This is content that's being generated, being enabled, and utilizing. If I could reopen my phone to get some of the detail, utilizing these platforms to specifically manipulate individual workers. So these are the types of levels of work and levels of effort that our adversaries around the world are going to go to and going to utilize these platforms to achieve their end goals. So, I mean, question to you guys is, what other challenges are you seeing or have you seen on this journey with these platforms? I mean, where else are you seeing the impact? Where else are you seeing issues that we'd want to make the audience aware of? Because deepfakes change our entire mindset of what is reality online, but other tools are being utilized elsewhere, both for manipulation, financial gain, and power creation. I mean, power in like geopolitical power, not power lights. You want to start?
What I would say, one of the big problems with generative AI and cybersecurity, where they go together and are quite terrifying, is that generative AI is able to do bad stuff at scale. Yeah, it can look at a company and find and create full dossiers on everybody in the company automatically as agents. They can find videos of people, clone their voice. 11 Labs does a phenomenal job, but other companies will do that as well. And it can create, like you said, Synthesia or whatever, or HeyGen. There's a bunch of different video generating ones where you can create people from a couple of pictures. I know for a while it was said that it took like 10 pictures and 3 seconds of audio to generate a avatar for somebody. That was some Microsoft technology that they've never released, but we can do it with around that a little bit more, but not much more right now. So you can do that, and that's just for exploiting. We've got deepfakes. That's another big issue where people can take, say, video you've done and tweak it and make you say other things. That's actually been around for a lot of years again, but it's taking this technology so very unsophisticated fools can use these sophisticated tools. And
I like that. That's good. I'm stealing that. That's really good.
I stole from Dr. Hyde.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. Yeah.
So that's one of the big problems here, is that all of a sudden people that aren't smart or don't have the skills can do a lot with this.
Yeah, it's the democratization, the democratization of cybercrime.
Yeah. Luckily, we do have a startup here in Boise called swear.com. He creates what's called a digital DNA to help prevent deepfakes. And it basically fingerprints every single frame of a video. So if somebody tries to say, well, you said this, they can go back to the original video and say, no, I didn't. And if they try to say, oh, you did this, and they can also say, well, it's not official, so this is not something I said. So there's different ways that are coming up. And thankfully, Jason, who's the CEO, thought of this 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. And it's just now, deepfakes are just now becoming huge. Right. So I think it's another way, it's a way to protect ourselves, but hopefully things like that will be able to be used in real-time streaming and other technologies coming up soon. So,
yeah, Noah, your perspective?
I would say that if I were to give advice to people about how to deal with this, is to, again, put hands on it, like research it, try it, clone your voice, make yourself an avatar. And the reason I say that is because it's kind of the same thing when the internet hit and there were email scams and people were like, well, they said my name in the header. There's no way this isn't real. Like, it's just, there's kind of a level of not understanding how sophisticated these things can be. And if you do it, and I have done this, if you actually clone yourself and like make your digital clone and listen to it talk to you, and you can't tell, and you're looking at yourself that it's fake, understand like how powerful it is, because it will give you like I think a much more reasonable level of caution if you're dealing with a situation like if you're the Hong Kong employee and you understand that this technology exists, and you've seen it and like actually had the feeling of like, whoa, this is holy cow. Then when the CFO is like, hey, go ahead and 25 million over this way, you're gonna be like, thank you. Okay, I'll do that. And then as soon as it hangs up, like, you're gonna go confirm with every single person you can find, right? And I don't think we have that level right now of understanding of how sophisticated it can be. And if we do, it'll maybe hopefully create more caution. Yeah. Because what I'm really, really hoping doesn't happen, and this is like we're on the razor's edge right now, is that these really crazy regulations come out, and they're gonna like shut down platforms like 11 Labs and HeyGen, and then only the law-abiding citizens who will not have hands on it, because all of the stuff you see out there that can be used by all of us, you can all go download it. People are making their own stuff. So the only thing is you stop the people who are trying to use it for good, and the people who don't care about the law will continue, and they'll get better and better and better and more and stronger and like more powerful, and then nobody has access to it, and they never see it. They don't understand that it's even possible. I really hope that doesn't happen. And I think I feel the same way about a lot of the cybersecurity issues with Gen AI, is that it's too new right now. We don't really understand a lot of what it's going to be in the future. We've already seen some of the bad things, but I would say curiosity is greater than resistance. It's an amplitude wave that's equal in both directions. The bad and the good are equal. It's an amazing tool. It's very powerful for good, very powerful for bad. And I hope that people will kind of just, go into it, because it's just not going back in the bag. Yeah, the cat's out. The cat's out. I mean, yeah, please.
So another comment. What we're talking about here are these big models, these commercial models. My desktop at work has a RTX 4090 on it. I can clone my voice using that. I can run a model. I've downloaded uncensored models that literally will allow me to ask it anything. I can ask it to create phishing emails, if I want. I've done it just to test it out. There are purpose-built GPTs. There's Fraud GPT. There's Worm GPT. They're purpose-built to do bad stuff. So even if we have the regulations, I think this goes back to what you're saying, if we have these regulations, it's not like it's that hard for an individual to do it. And then you look at NVIDIA just announced their new computers, their new desktop AI computers that can run a very large language model. Mine can run a small large language model. These things will run almost a frontier model, and if you plug two of them together, it's still less than $10,000, and they will run like DeepSeek R1. Yeah. So these are very powerful computers at really low prices. Bad guys have no problem getting a hold of stuff like that.
And easily at scale. Yeah, therein lies the challenge. So, I mean, one of the questions I typically get from audience members who are kind of starting their journey, and there's so many of us that are still starting that journey into AI. And one of the questions that I get when we start talking about the evils that are being done with it is how can we spot AI produced content? Is there a way to do it? And I'd love to get your perspective on this because I have mine, but I'd love to get both of your perspectives. Noah, you want to start? And if it's not, that's okay. I mean, I want the audience to understand this because my typical answer is you've got to use the platforms, get used to, and see what can happen. But I'd love to see if there's anything that you're aware of that kind of spot that content.
I mean, right now, maybe just from using it so often, I can spot certain things, but I wouldn't say that I can spot everything. And 5 years from now, no. Like 0% chance that your human eyeballs will be able to distinguish a deepfake video from a real video. You won't be able to tell the audio. It'll be one for one exact replicas. There's no world where that doesn't happen.
Yeah, the sixth finger on the hand.
It's not going to be a thing.
Is not going to happen anymore.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the reasons why I'm always like, I'm always trying to. You gotta put hands. You gotta understand this. Like, if you take yourself away from the technology and take yourself out of the conversation with all of your concerns, like we're early enough in the game right now to have some say, like to shape a little bit of how this is going to go forward. And I do have a little concern that people who have a lot of ethical or moral objections are removing themselves from the conversation. Because there is. Don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, I'm definitely an optimist. I use it to help people. That's what I do. I try to find efficiencies. I build things with it. But it's a tool, and it is just as good as it is bad. Like you said, So, that was my thought.
Yeah, Kevin.
So in academia, AI detectors are a hot button issue because we don't want students to cheat. They don't work. Plain and simple. Yeah. You see a lot of research. Oh, this works great. This works great. If you look at who funded it, usually it's the detecting software that's funding this research. It could do a good job on older technology, like the old ChatGPT 3.5. Wasn't too bad. Honestly, what I've found the very best way to detect it is for me to create or to actually do the assignment using AI and see what AI creates. I had an assignment this semester already, and it was painfully obvious which students used AI. And I even had a couple that are a little bit more higher functioning with AI that it was obvious they used AI, but they also went back and actually were the human in the loop and actually fixed it and made it correct. But those that didn't, that just said, oh, that looks good enough, oh, it was bad. Yeah. So that is a big issue right there, is that whole detection
The ones
aspect.
That are like at the end of the thing, it still says, and this is a report that your teacher won't be able to.
Yes. I'll share very quickly, and then we'll pivot. I'll share very quickly. I had one of my team members in my new role in industry, one of my staff members, who you could tell probably doesn't have the necessary written communication skills. Suddenly sends me this email that reads beautifully, and I'm like, he didn't write this. And down at the bottom, there's the brackets saying, insert name here, and I'm like, oh no. So I had to have this nice conversation with him and say, look, if you're going to do that, that's great, but just, there are places and time. So
when it comes to detection, it's always going to be cat and mouse game. And the people that are trying to avoid it or make better tools are always going to be the winners. That's the reason why I do like Swear, because it's an offensive solution. It's not defensive. I don't think there's going to be anything that's reliable in the long term that is defensive for detection.
Yeah, that's fair. I agree with that. I would agree with that. So, all right. So you've come on this journey with us. You see the maturity. You remember the law that I mentioned at the top. We've taken you down to this kind of pit of despair. We don't know what reality is. You can be manipulated easily. The person that you think is in charge on the video screen is probably not in charge. They may be a false avatar. Cheating's rampant. Okay, got that. I want to pivot because I think at the end of the day, what was really interesting in our early conversations about this panel, every single one of us, and I think you see it, you've seen it in our conversations when we think about what we've been able to do and how we've been able to do things. There's this sense of joy that we've all collectively had, and you know, it was really interesting to kind of catch on to that each one of us, even through the chaos that we described at the top of our respective journeys, there was this sense of joy, this like, oh wow moment. So I really, you know, you've both been in this space a relatively long time for the field that we're in. Give me a perspective of all the platforms that you've worked with. What are the maybe 2 or 3 that have really just elicited that moment of not just, it's like, I don't want to use anything else but this. It's kind of like the construction person who picks up that nail gun that like, this thing feels perfect and I'm going to use this nail gun and this brand of nail gun forever and ever and ever.
So I don't know that I've got one tool like that. I do get that, for lack of a better word, vibe whenever I'm using Claude. Claude is a really good, it's very good at speaking. It's also really good at programming. I had an issue where I was trying to use Gemini to do some programming. I spent an hour, I threw it into Claude and it fixed it with 2 prompts. So it's very good at that kind of thing. And just being able to produce work that is at basically what I think is my quality. I train these to speak like me, sound like me, and then I can go back and tweak it because it's never perfect, but it does a really good job of allowing me to just kind of throw a lot of ideas in there and have it clean it up and make it functional. And then I can tweak it from there. For my students, I've had a student that was like mostly blind. And it's very difficult, let me tell you right now, it's very difficult to teach somebody Excel when they can barely see the screen. And I didn't really understand what he was running into. I actually used Dolly at the time to prompt to find out what it looks like, how he perceives Excel and the world itself. It totally changed how I was able to help him. Other students with like dyslexia, they're able to use these ChatGPT or whatnot and get work done faster. They can talk to it. ADHD people like me, brain's very chaotic, and a lot of times you have this cognitive load that to do anything that ChatGPT or any of the tools just alleviate. It's kind of magical almost. So I know it's not exactly like tools, but it's in general how different ways I use it to alleviate pain points in my life or my students' lives that I've seen.
That's great. That's great. Noah?
I mean, the one that probably sticks out the most, aside from GPT, and I'll circle back to why, is Midjourney.
Right.
I can't think of a tool that has caused me more joy than Midjourney. There's just something really, it's really magical. And I say that from the perspective of being like a lifelong like artist, graphic designer, like watching it do what I spent so much time learning to do like instantly. And I don't like when we talk to your students and everyone was mad about it. I'm like, this is amazing. But like one of the things that I do sometimes just for fun, I'll take like lines of like that are not prompts, they're not like traditional prompts, like lines of poetry that I'll write and just stick it in there and see what comes out and make these little like boards of like image with the lines. Yeah. Like stuff like that is kind of like we've never had anything like that before, just I feel like it gives such a short distance to a type of expression that was very tedious before. And while I do understand that there's like some joy in that process, like that says something like what you go through to create a piece of art. I've loved the idea of just kind of be able to create so much so fast and just look through, I like that one. Let me try making something more of this one. Because it just removes the barriers of, it's almost like it's moving faster, so I can let my mind just kind of.
Yeah, I can understand that. I mean, I always had that want to be an artist, but you give me a paintbrush and it's going to end up looking like either a Maplethorpe, or something that just is pure chaos because of the mental load. And so that's what I've seen is like the image generators for me to be able to put a prompt in and be able to get something out and make me go, yeah, that's what's in here. That's
Right.
the amazing thing for me is to see that, not just the give me a PowerPoint presentation on this topic and here 30 seconds later I've got it. And it's like, oh crap, I got the rest of my day. Is the fact that I can actually take the chaos and go, well, give me this. And it's like there's a match. That's the moment of like joy for me. So yeah, I appreciate that. I know we're coming right up on time. I think we're supposed to end at 11:50. I think we got a few minutes. I'd love to, I want to ask the question, are there questions that you might happen to have for the panelists? I'm going to start over here and then I'm going to go to you, okay? Question?
So I'm one of those non-smart tech people that a month ago went into Gemini Advanced and OpenAI and AI Studio. And I love it. And it's helping me create. And I'm learning to program that I never thought I could program. But I'm also using the live stream where it follows my screen and it teaches me or tells me, hey, this is what you can fix or this is how you do this. Is there a danger in that?
I mean, if you trust Google, I guess you're fine. It's
like
it's-
totally the biggest international, yeah.
Well, it's a lot of with all of these technologies, right? Where people are like, I'm concerned about the data. Your data's
It is out there.
Your data's out. Yeah. Then you should go live in the woods because every single terms and conditions that you click yes on without reading, they're like, yeah, by the way, we're going to sell all your data to third-party advertisers and blah, blah, blah. It's everywhere. It's kind of like, it's really hard to get around. But in terms of just like, Google's, I mean, I wouldn't put maybe certain things on the screen. I don't know how sensitive of stuff you're looking at, but when you're looking at just like, oh, teach me how to use this software, which I think is the coolest use of that technology. The thing she's talking about, where you can share your screen, like in Google AI Studio. This is free, by the way. You tell it to share your screen, then it can see your screen. And you can talk to it audibly while it watches your screen. So probably one of the coolest use cases of it is when you're learning a new piece of software. And I tried this. I tried it with Miro, and I know how to use Miro, but I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing, and I'm mad. And I think I was just being like, I was trying to, and it was like, what do you want to do? And I was like, I don't know. I want to make stuff. And it was like, okay, there's a menu on the left bar. I was like, I don't see it. And it was like, it's a menu. It's a vertical rectangle. And I was like, I don't see that either. And just like being really belligerent, but it walked me through. It was like, it's shaped like this. It has this color. It has a drop shadow on it. The third item down has this icon. Click on it, and you can make a shape. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
What I love about it too is, and please don't take offense, but unlike talking to a live person, it's not condescending, it's upbeat,
It's more human.
motivating.
Infinitely patient.
Yeah.
And I want to point out, if you're already using AI Studio like that, you are way ahead of the curve right now. So great job. If you just started doing that, great job like getting up to speed that quick.
You, sir?
Very rarely you have to answer phone calls from unknown numbers. You're waiting for some very rarely. How do you guys answer phone calls? You know your voice could be recorded and replicated. You want to avoid that. Do you answer really shortly? Are you confusing the hell out of everyone by that? Do you feel weird doing that? What do you do?
Yeah. Honestly, I just say hello. My wife is the one that's like, she hears about all the bad stuff. So she's kind of trained me just to say hello and let them tell me what is going on. Unfortunately, you will get calls from people from an unknown number that you really do want to interact with or talk to. A lot of times it'll be somebody that I forgot to program into my phone, or I get my phone number to that are contacting me for business of some sort. And there's really not a good way to get around that. The nice thing about phones is the quality is pretty low. Mm-hmm. So, but realistically, at least for me, I have really high quality videos I've already created. My voice is out there. So there's really no way for me to really protect it anyways.
I got a story. I'll let Noah answer here, but I got a story for that.
I agree with that last thing you said. It's kind of impossible if they really, really want it. But if people are doing it at scale via phone calls, I don't want to make it easy for them. I don't say anything. I just answer the phone and just wait.
Yeah,
Because if
that's
it's a person, they'll say something.
you're right.
You know, a lot of the AI systems by default, and people who are using like Twilio to like do these mass calls and like they're hooking it up to some kind of API in the background, they need you to say something first. And a lot of people don't know that. So if you don't say anything, AI won't say anything.
Yeah, it won't
But a
activate.
person will. So I just don't say anything if it's a number I don't know.
Yeah, that's been my typical approach. Now, 33 years in cyber, and I'll give you the oops moment because it happens to everybody. So I happened to get a call 2 days ago, and it was not an unknown number. It was actually an identified number from a company, and it looked like, and the logo and the company name that came up would happen to be near to a match of a company that some of my team members had been working with. And I thought to myself in that moment, oh, this is this person calling me. So I swiped. I said, hello, this is Ed Vasko. And sure enough, started taking me on through this. So here's the interesting thing, and this is the takeaway, is that it can happen to anybody. You have to just be aware, constantly aware of the surroundings, constantly aware of what's happening. And, afterwards, after hanging up quickly because I realized what was going on, the realization was, you know what, like I've come full circle. I can be paranoid, but I'm also fully aware of the fact that my data is out there. My images are out there. When I go out and do national talks, my family members get calls saying, "Hey, I've been hijacked, or I need a quick cash flow. Can you please go and wire me or pay this or do this for me or whatever?" It's amazing to watch how these, the adversaries are out there grabbing this image, grabbing this voice, and replicating it on out, even for a schmo like me, let alone people that may have larger geopolitical influence. So great question. Yeah, follow on.
I heard that it only takes 2 seconds to capture your voice and use it with AI. Is that something where it's going to get even faster?
Well, I think we said before, Microsoft had said 3 seconds, but I don't know if either of you happen to have any.
My experience has been about 5 seconds for a low quality one. Like it'll sound a little robotic. They need some intonation. They need to hear certain kind of vowels, but it's getting better and better. But people who want to make ones that are really convincing, they need about, I would say, about 5 solid minutes of varied like audio.
Of live stream.
Yeah.
No, of live stream.
Hey,
so there you go.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be calling you all later at the same time.
So on that note, thank you all for participating. We really appreciate it. Thank you for the questions. Thank you to my panelists. Have a wonderful tree fort and spend some time over in the main area for the rest of the Hack Fort space. And I hope the content here is just as phenomenal as always. So thank you.